My MLB overrated and underrated player tier list video did fantastic, so I thought, why not stir up that pot a little bit? Let's keep it going, and let's talk about the most overrated players for every single team in Major League Baseball. So today's gonna be a banger. If you guys show amazing support, tomorrow will be a banger, because we'll do the most underrated players on every single team in Major League Baseball. So 2 bangers on the weekend. I feel like I kind of owe you guys because I didn't upload on Thursday or yesterday, Friday. Thursday I had a good excuse, went into New York City, went to the MLB offices, got some really cool stuff, got to see everything there, got this dope Let the Kids Play shirt. So I feel like going to visit Major League Baseball was a good excuse. But we're back on the grind, and we're starting off with the most overrated player on every single Major League Baseball team today. As always, if you guys do enjoy these videos and you want to see more of this kind of content, make sure to leave a like on the video. That's the best way to show your support. Subscribe if you're new and you enjoy baseball content. This is the place to be. Hit that sub button, join the team, be a part of the family. Let me know in the comment section down below if you agree or disagree with me. I know you guys love to tell me your opinions, so I'm sure that this one's gonna have a lot of heat in the comment section below. Be a part of it, contribute. Remember to follow me on Twitter and Instagram at GiraffeNeckMarc. Links in the description. It's the best way to continue the conversation. And you know what else is overrated? Paying too much for sports tickets. So we gotta give a shout out to my sponsor, SeatGeek. If you guys want to save $20 off your first purchase on SeatGeek, make sure to use the code GIRAFFE at checkout to save $20. Go to a sporting event, save some money, win-win. Now it's time to get to the start of the video. Let's talk about the most overrated players. For the Oakland Athletics, not a lot of players to choose from, but the one that I'm going to go with as most overrated is going to be Mike Fiers. The reason I say this is because he's thrown 2 no-hitters in his career, so people think he's a pretty decent pitcher, but in reality, Mike Fiers just isn't very good. He's not an ace at all. His ERA isn't great. He doesn't strike out a lot of guys. He's just happened to throw 2 no-hitters. So impressive, but he's not a very good pitcher. For the Baltimore Orioles, again, it's hard to find a player that's overrated because they're just so terrible. But I guess if I had to choose, I'm gonna pick Chris Davis. I hate to beat a dead horse here because he seems to be an easy target this season. But the reason I go with him being overrated, even though everyone knows he's terrible, is just that contract. So while everyone knows he's bad, I still think he's gonna be overrated because I still see some people saying he's playing well, and come on, look at his numbers. That's not the case. This next player for the Cleveland Indians, ooh, this is gonna catch some heat, but right now, Jose Ramirez is the most overrated player on that team. The last 3 seasons, he's been incredible, but this year, he's looked absolutely atrocious. He's about 100 at-bats away from the first 300, which usually sets the tone for the season, and if he continues to hit under 200 for his first 300 at-bats of the year, that's a horrendous start to the season. So I think Jose Ramirez is a bit overrated right now. For the Atlanta Braves, we got our first pitcher on the list, and we're talking about Mike Foltynewicz. He's a bit overrated. He's considered the ace of that staff, and while he does have some really good stuff as a pitcher, his numbers are just not there. Last year was a career year, but 2019 has not been off to a great start, and if you looked at previous years, he hasn't pitched well either. So while he did break out in 2018, it seems like that might be an anomaly because 2019 has just been a rough start for him. Foltynewicz definitely a little overrated. For the White Sox, it's a bit tough to find someone that's overrated, but I think that Reynaldo Lopez is going to be my choice. Reynaldo Lopez was a top prospect with the Nationals, and when he was traded to the White Sox for Adam Eaton, you thought that the White Sox got an absolute steal. You've heard about how good his arm is and how he can turn into a great pitcher, but we just have not yet seen it yet in Major League Baseball. He had a full season last year and he pitched okay, but he's just not pitching well in 2019 and honestly hasn't shown me enough to say that he can make that next step forward. To the other team that has Sox in their name, we're talking about the Boston Red Sox, and the most overrated player on that team is Jackie Bradley Jr. I hate to do it because he's a South Carolina Gamecock, but he's just not that good anymore. Jackie Bradley Jr. at the plate this year has been pretty much useless. For a little over the first month of the season, he had an OPS plus under 10. So yes, he's good defensively out in center field, but that doesn't make up for the fact that he's absolutely atrocious at the plate. Jackie Bradley Jr., definitely overrated. For the Cincinnati Reds, this one hurts me to say it, but Joey Votto, he's overrated. There's a tweet that I keep seeing, and I think it summarizes it best, but they're telling the Space Jam monsters to give Joey Votto his powers back because it seems like he's just had them sucked out of him. Joey Votto doesn't hit for power anymore. He's not even hitting for average. It seems like he's a completely different player, like he forgot how to hit. This is a guy who pretty much at the start of last year people were saying is a top first baseman in the game, and even this year they thought he'd come back strong, but he just looks atrocious. So yeah, he's a bit overrated right now. He's not good. For the Marlins, similar to the Orioles, who cares? Not a good team. If I had to choose, I guess their most overrated player is Starlin Castro. This is a dude who they traded for Giancarlo Stanton, so he must have been worth something. And since coming to the Marlins, especially this year, he hasn't been good. This is a guy who normally hit for a decent average, and he's just not doing that. Starlin Castro, overrated. This player for the San Diego Padres had a lot of hype around him. Manuel Margot is considered to be a center field prospect that could break out and be a true top player in the league, and that's just never happened. I mean, his name was being thrown around in big trade rumors for guys like Noah Syndergaard, Corey Kluber. I don't care that he's fast. I don't care that he's pretty good out in center field. He offers nothing at the plate. He's definitely overrated. Another speedy center fielder making our list here. The most overrated player on the Kansas City Royals is Billy Hamilton. This is a dude who, when he came onto the scene with the Reds, we expected to be stealing 100+ bases a year, getting on base, being a havoc, just being a real pain in the butt for teams to come up against. But Billy Hamilton can't hit. He can't get on base. He plays a great center field, I'll give him that. But that's pretty much it. Billy Hamilton had a lot of hype, and you thought he was going to become a great player, and he just never lived up to that hype. Now for my favorite team, the New York Mets. The most overrated player on that team is going to be Noah Syndergaard. I'll admit, I'm even someone who's overrated Noah Syndergaard in the past. This is a dude who I said could be a top 10 pitcher in baseball. That's not the case in 2019. There's something off with Noah. He's just not the same pitcher that he once was. We saw his rookie year. He was absolutely amazing, and then he just hasn't been the same since. I don't know if it's confidence or pitch selection or just hitters are adjusting, but Noah Syndergaard just doesn't have that same mean attitude that I once saw, and his numbers reflect that. Keeping it in the National League East, we're talking about the Nationals. The most overrated player on that team is going to be Brian Dozier. It seems like most analysts and executives around the league praise the Nationals for picking up Brian Dozier this offseason, but let me tell you, he has been an absolute failure. The dude's hitting in the low 200s. He has almost no power left anymore. So for what a lot of people were saying was a great move, has turned out into a bad move, therefore making him an overrated player. For the Houston Astros, it was pretty tough because almost everybody on that team is really good. But if you're forcing me to choose someone that's overrated, I'm going to go with Yuli Gurriel. I feel like when people talk about Gurriel, they expect him to have better numbers than he does. He has a below 100 OPS plus. Doesn't hit for great power, doesn't hit for great average. He fits well in that lineup, but if he was a star on his own, he just doesn't cut it. And I feel like some people think he's actually really, really good. So while I don't think he's a bad player, I guess he's the most overrated player on the Astros. Heading out west to the Los Angeles Dodgers, their most overrated player, in my opinion, is going to be Kike Hernandez. Kike Hernandez is an interesting type player. He's kind of abandoned hitting for average and just goes for home runs every time. And while he destroys left-handed pitching, he's just not consistent enough for me to be considered a pretty good player like a lot of people talk about him. The Dodgers don't have a lot of bad players, and even Kike as overrated might be a stretch, but I gotta pick someone, so Kike's my choice. For the St. Louis Cardinals, it came down to Yadier Molina and Matt Carpenter for me, but looking at Matt Carpenter's number this year, I think it's gotta be him. He had an MVP type season last year. I mean, he had a hot couple months, but if you look at his numbers, kind of for the entire year, he wasn't very good. And in 2019, he's continued to not be very good. Carpenter lacks consistency and seems to go on hot stretches and then get ice cold. So for someone who people want to consider an MVP type player, I need him to play well the entire season, not just a couple months. For the Philadelphia Phillies, oh, you guys know who it is. Come on, the $330 million man. We're talking about Bryce Harper. When you pay someone $330 million, you expect him to hit. Bryce Harper, not hitting. When you pay someone $330 million, you expect him to be the best player on your team. You expect him to be an MVP candidate. Bryce Harper, not that player right now. Philly fans will like to tell you how well he's playing, but you know that's just not the case. Bryce Harper, he's definitely overrated. For the Seattle Mariners, again, a team that's not very good, so it's difficult to find someone who's overrated. But there's one player that does come to mind, and that's going to be Kyle Seager. Now, no one's saying that he's a top third baseman in the game, but I have heard that he is a good player, and when you look at his numbers, you just go, really? I mean, at the plate, you think he's good? He had one good season where he was an all-star, but otherwise, he's been pretty mediocre. So, yeah, Kyle Seager's going to be my overrated pick for the Mariners. For the Chicago Cubs, there was a few choices I could have gone here. I could have gone with David Bodie. I could have gone with Yu Darvish. I could have gone with Jason Hayward. But the guy I'm going to pick is going to be Kyle Schwarber. In my opinion, Kyle Schwarber feels like he's been a huge letdown. I think Schwarber's the most overrated because I feel like people still talk about how he's going to break out. This is going to be the year, and he just still doesn't do it. The Detroit Tigers are tough because almost nobody on that team's hitting, so my choice is going to be Josh Harrison. The reason I pick Harrison as the most overrated is because they signed him in the offseason, so you assume that they figured he was going to be able to make some sort of impact for the team offensively or defensively, and he's not done either of those. The dude's hitting under 200, he's having one of the worst seasons of his career, and on a bad Detroit Tigers team, it doesn't help that he's playing terribly. I think I'm going to catch the most heat for this one, because for the Minnesota Twins, unfortunately, the most overrated player on that team is La Tortuga, Willians Astudillo. I love me some Willians Astudillo. He is the hitter version of Bartolo Colon. And yes, while part of the overhype is a meme, when you look at his numbers, Willians Astudillo just really isn't cutting it at the major league level. He's just not a good enough player to be considered every day. And yes, I get the meme is calling him the GOAT, but at some point he has to play well, and he's just not doing that. Willians Astudillo, overrated. Ugh, God, I hate to do that. For the Pittsburgh Pirates, there's one clear choice for the most overrated player, and that's Chris Archer. They traded for him last year. They moved Austin Meadows and Tyler Glasnow to the Rays, who have been going off, and they thought Chris Archer was going to be able to have a change of scenery and kind of be like Garrett Cole was to the Astros for them. Yeah, well, that's not the case. Chris Archer didn't pitch great last year. He's off to a terrible start in 2019. At some point, you gotta say, is Chris Archer really actually that good of a pitcher, or were you just wrong? And right now, it looks like the Pirates were just wrong. Chris Archer, ooh, very overrated. Speaking of Chris Archer's former team, the Tampa Bay Rays, the most overrated player on that team is going to be Kevin Kiermaier. People like to tell me how Kevin Kiermaier is one of the best center fielders in baseball. We're talking defensively and with the arm? Yes, definitely. But when you talk about the full game, absolutely not. Kevin Kiermaier is essentially useless at the plate. Now, yes, he'll hit you some doubles and triples because the dude can fly on the base paths, but he basically swings a pool noodle at the plate. You gotta be good all around, and Kevin Kiermaier is just not that player. Headed back out west for the Los Angeles Angels, this was a tough pick for me. I was between Zach Kozar and Matt Harvey, and maybe this is a little bit of a personal vendetta here, but I'm picking Matt Harvey as the most overrated player on the Angels. A lot of people this offseason were saying that Matt Harvey was a pretty decent signing by the Angels, and I just don't know how you could think that. They're paying Matt Harvey $11 million this year, and he has an ERA at 7.5 and a whip at 1.5. I mean, there's just no world where he was a good signing. You saw him pitch last year, he didn't have it. You saw him pitch the year before, he didn't have it. And yet people were still willing to give this guy a chance. I don't get it. Matt Harvey, overrated. He's done. For the Diamondbacks, a surprise team this year, tough to pick an overrated player, but if I had to choose one, it would be Nick Ahmed. Nick Ahmed won the Gold Glove last year, so people consider him as one of the better shortstops in the National League, but that's just not the case. Defensively, he's great. Offensively, ooh, not good. So to call him a decent shortstop or even a good shortstop, it's a little rough. Nick Ahmed, if I have to choose, he's going to be the overrated player for the Diamondbacks. For the Blue Jays, there was a couple different players I could go through. I thought maybe Randall Grichuk, but the player I'm going to choose is Lourdes Gurriel. This is a guy who in his short stint last year had a great start with the Blue Jays, and people expected him to continue on that strong 2018 for this season. That's not the case. He ended up getting sent down to AAA because he was just off to such a terrible start. And while he is back up with the Major League team, it's not because he's necessarily earned it. It's just that the Blue Jays need some players. Lourdes Gurriel, definitely a disappointment this year. Had a lot of hype. Overrated. Another player that I feel is overrated, had a strong 2018, and 2019 has been a disaster. We're talking about Kyle Freeland of the Colorado Rockies. In 2018, Freeland had casually one of the best years in the National League for a pitcher. People were talking about how he could continue on in 2019, maybe be a Cy Young candidate. And 2019, wow, he has shown that he has taken a huge step back. ERA above 6. He's not pitching well. So for the sheer reason that he had a great year last year and people were saying that he's going to continue and that he is a good pitcher, ooh, I don't know about that. His numbers are bad this year. I think he's overrated. The Milwaukee Brewers, another really good team. Not a lot of bad players, not a lot of overrated guys there. So if you're forcing me to pick, I'm going to go with Jesus Aguilar. He had a breakout season last year. He was being talked about as maybe a top 10 first baseman in baseball. He has some of the best power in the game. 2019 has been a nightmare for him as well. He's not even hitting home runs this year. Jesus Aguilar is not playing well. He's looking like that player that was getting cut by a lot of different teams again. So while he was maybe underrated last year, he came in this year with a lot of expectations and is not living up to them. Overrated. For the Texas Rangers, the most overrated player on that team is going to be Rougned Odor for me. Rougned Odor had such a great start to his career. He was hitting for power, he was hitting for average. He's pretty good at second base, and he just seems to be taking a step back every single season. Now, I know a lot of people aren't talking about it on the national scale as being a top second baseman in the game, but this is a guy who showed us a lot of promise and has kind of been a letdown since then. The San Francisco Giants are second to last team here. The most overrated player on that team is going to be Brandon Crawford. People will continue to argue with me that he is a top shortstop in the game. I don't understand what baseball you are watching. Brandon Crawford is barely hitting 200. Defensively, he's not even a top 5, top 10 shortstop in the league anymore. He's definitely taking a step back. I mean, the dude's getting older. He doesn't have the range he once had. He still makes a nice play here and there, but Brandon Crawford is a shell of the player he once was, and people continue to argue with me that he is a good shortstop. I just don't know how you could think that. Brandon Crawford is definitely one of the more overrated players in the league. The dude's not good anymore. And then last but certainly not least, we got the New York Yankees, and the most overrated player on that team is going to be Gio Urshela. There are some Yankee fans talking about how Gio Urshela should be the starting third baseman over Andujar, even when he came back healthy. Like, how are you going to tell me that Gio Urshela is going to be a better player than Miguel Andujar over his career? Is he off to a hot start in 2019? Yes, without a doubt. But he's been in the league since 2015, and prior to that, he was pretty much a 225 hitter. Yankee fans, I understand it. You got a guy who's playing well right now that you just signed for absolutely nothing, but come back down to earth. The Gio Urshela is eventually going to start playing like the average player he is. He's definitely overrated. So those are my choices for the most overrated player on every single team in Major League Baseball. I would love to know what you guys think down in the comment section below. I'm sure you're going to disagree with me, but if you agree with me, you can let me know too down in the comments below. Let me know what you got to say. Subscribe to the channel if you're new and you enjoy the content. If you love baseball, this is the place to be, so make sure you hit that sub button, as well as I'm doing the most underrated players tomorrow, so sub, you won't miss it. Remember, leave a like on the video if you did enjoy it. That's the best way to support the channel as well. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at GiraffeNeckMarc, links in the description. And remember to use the code Giraffe at checkout on SeatGeek to save $20 off your first purchase. Thank you guys so much for watching. We hit 60K subs the other day, so that's amazing. We keep on climbing the ladder on the road to 100K. But we're going to wrap up today's video with that. Thank you guys for watching. YouTube recommends you watch this video right here, as well as this is my most recent upload. So click through those if you have not yet seen them. Thank you all for watching for the third time, I guess, in this video, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.